The racial formation of American Indians, negotiating legitimate identities within tribal and federal law. About 2/3 of all federally recognized tribes in the coterminous United States specify a minimum blood quantum in the legal citizenship criteria, with 1/4 blood degree being the most frequent minimum requirements. Identity based on blood quantum closely reflect 19th century and early 20th century theories of race introduced into indigenous cultures by Euro-Americans. These understood as blood as quite literally the vehicle for the transmission of cultural characteristics. These theories of race articulated closely with political goals characteristic of the dominant American society. The original stated intention of blood quantum distinction was to determine the point at which the various responsibilities of that dominant society to Indian peoples ended. The ultimate and explicit federal intention was to use the blood quantum standard as the means to liquidate tribal lands and eliminate government trust responsibility to tribes along the entitlement programs, treaty rights, and reservations. Indians would eventually, through intermarriage combined with the mechanism of blood quantum's calculations, become citizens indistinguishable from all other citizens. Now let's describe the tribal identity negotiations and their consequences. How do tribes define citizenship? Tribes possess the power to define their citizenship through self-generated legal definitions. This allows them the right to vote in tribal elections, hold tribal office, participate in the political and cultural life of the tribe, share in revenues of tribally controlled businesses, live on reservations, and inherit land. The consequences of the citizenships is that it tears apart families and they're pushed off reservations. Now we're talking about legal federal definitions. Because of the U.S. Constitution uses the word Indian in 2 places but defines it nowhere, Congress has made its own definition on an ad hoc basis. Law has also been used for various protections. A number of protections are available to individual Indians from the federal government. Notably, among those are the Indians' parents' rights under the Indian Child Welfare Act of 1978. It was passed in order to slow the wholesale transfer of children out of families, tribes, and cultures. Another law is used to seek protection from prosecution for the possession of specific ceremonial objects otherwise restricted by law, such as the peyote ingested by Native American church members. The Native American Graves Protection and Reparations Act of 1990 had a legal definition that allowed Indian people to claim sacred ceremonial objects, as well as receive and rebury the remains of their ancestral dead. Compensation for Art, Indian Arts and Artscraft Act of 1990 was also passed. The degree of biological ancestry can take on such a tremendous significance in tribal context that it literally overwhelms all other considerations of identity, especially when it's constructed as pure. American Indians must formally produce strong evidence of other rather substantial amounts of Indian blood to be allowed entry into the corresponding racial category. The Dawes Roll typically one or more of their ancestors appears on one of the tribe's base rolls. The paperwork took so long that a significant number of Indians died before the paperwork was completed. This meant that their descendants would be forever barred from becoming tribal citizens. And President Roosevelt made a purpose to break up tribes by destroying indigenous cultures by their foundation, their collective ownership of land, and to integrate the Indians, thus liberated into the dominant American culture through the process of acculturation. It was to allow for Indians to be remade into individual private owners of small farms who would quickly become independent of government attention and expenditures. Uncooperative leaders and their families were hunted out and forcibly enrolled.